Hello everyone, welcome to Bonaventures, the Inspired Learners platform. My name is Datus Tumwambe and this is Inspired Learners podcast episode A59. Today I'm thrilled to introduce to you Francis Shirima, a Capuchin Franciscan friar with a deep interest on the development of artificial intelligence. Today we have him on the topic, the philosophical implications of artificial intelligence on consciousness, agency, moral responsibility, and potential impact to society. So without wasting time, may I welcome Brother Francis Shirima to unpack the topic. Brother Francis Shirima, most welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello everybody. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Now, I would like to open my presentation by quoting two very important concepts from a book 2084 by John Lennox. The first one is by Lennox himself, who says, one potential or further source of confusion in the discussion is that by using everyday words like learning, planning, reasoning, and intelligence as technical terms to describe inanimate machinery, some computer scientists make AI systems sound more capable than they actually are, since they often use such terms in a much narrower way than common use. As a result, media coverage of AI tends to over-dramatize results and be overly optimistic or overly fearful. But also, another quotation by Professor Joseph McCree, Melcham of the University of Alabama, speaking at a conference at Yale University to an audience that contained the Nobel Prize winner, Sir John Eccles. He says, it seems to me that a lot of needless debate could be avoided if AI researchers could admit that there are fundamental differences between machine intelligence and human intelligence, differences that cannot be overcome by any amount of research. In other words, to cite the sentient title of Milcham's talk, the artificial in artificial intelligence is real. So I think these two quotations really give a certain abstract idea about how my presentation is going to be. So for the sake of time, let me go straight. The title goes, The Philosophical Implications of Artificial Intelligence on Consciousness, Agency, Moral Responsibility, and Potential Impact to the Society. And so in this essay, as the title shows, first of all, I'll give an introduction and as an overview, but also I'll give an overview of what AI is so as to make sure we're all in the same track. But as well, there are some key concepts here to the understanding of the world discussion, which are consciousness, agency, and moral responsibility. In these, I'll make a metaphysical exposition of them before going to see the potential impact of AI into the society. Therefore, let me start with the introduction. So, in the beginning, artificial intelligence was thought to be a utopian idea, but today AI has brought great revolutions in fields such as medicine, security, space exploration, education, and many others. On the other side, AI happens as a threat to humanity, both as anticipated to overpower humans or malevolent use. Even Pope Francis was concerned about AI. Not only did he organize a conference of AI with experts, he asked Christians to pray for the advancement of AI as Pope's prayer intention for 2020. The potentials and powers the technology has bring bewildering philosophical questions. Therefore, this work attempts to examine the philosophical implications of AI on consciousness, agency, ethics, and potential impacts the technology has to humanity by the method of exposing the metaphysical nature of the respective areas mentioned in the Aristotelian Thomistic tradition in order to expose the quiddity of the phenomenon so as to understand its potential future impact to humanity. This work is thus executed, introduction, overview, philosophical examination of those concepts and human. Therefore, Here I have mentioned the method, which is metaphysical exposition, and the tradition of philosophy that I'll be using. I think this was well agreed upon the members of this platform earlier, so as to make sure people are in a good discussion. Therefore, let me give a brief overview of AI as far as this work is concerned. So, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is the ability of a digital computer or computer-controlled robot or device, you can say, to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. The term is frequently applied to the project of developing systems with the intellectual processes characteristics of humans, such as the ability to reason, discover meaning, generalize, or learn from past experience. Despite advances in computer power, there are as yet no programs that can fully match human flexibility over wide domains. Therefore, here the point is to make sure we understand human intelligence is flexible. It's not limited to a particular task, just like how I'll explain later about the algorithms, which are like the foundation of artificial intelligence programs in computers. On the other hand, there are programs that have attained the performance level of human experts and professionals in performing certain specific tasks, so that AI in this narrow sense is found in applications such as medical diagnosis, computer search engines, voice and handwriting recognition, and chatbots. The former is termed as artificial general intelligence, and the latter as narrow artificial intelligence. Therefore, I think from that definition, I believe most of you have already grasped what artificial intelligence is. Now, I find it necessary to give the evolution of AI. How did AI evolve to where the idea came from to what we have nowadays in forms of like ChatGPT, the large language models, and others. Therefore, the term artificial intelligence itself was coined by John McCarthy in 1956, who said, AI is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Although the actual work on what today is referred as artificial intelligence was proposed by the British mathematician and computer scientist Alan Turing, Turing's inventions and theoretical work led to his proposal of a learning machine. According to him, a machine that could converse with humans without human knowing that it is a machine would be said to be intelligent. It's now known as the Turing test. Therefore, Alan Turing is really considered as the father of artificial intelligence, notwithstanding nowadays this Godfrey Hinton, the Nobel Prize winner in physics, who is called the godfather of AI. Therefore, Alan Turing is really appreciable, though he had a tragic end of his life. Later breakthroughs in AI development include in 1951, Marvin Minsky and Dean Edmonds with the first computer neural network, that is a way of processing data inspired by the connections of neurons in the human brain. Later, a technique known as machine learning and deep learning was developed. A machine learning system takes information about the past and makes decisions or predictions when it is presented with new information. Key to the current machine learning process is the idea of algorithm. I would like every one of you to pay attention to my explanation about the algorithm, because this shows, according to my argument, the limitations and what really says a lot later on about artificial intelligence. An algorithm, first of all, to start with the word algorithm. The word algorithm is derived from the name of a famous Persian mathematician, astronomer, and geographer, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. They have al-Khwarizmi, that is in Arabic. Therefore, he was a mathematician, so due to these kind of calculations, whatever, developing such kind of some sort of equations, they coined this after him. So today, an algorithm can be defined as a precisely defined set of mathematical or logical operations for the performance of a particular task. Anyone familiar with computer programming or computer programs, whatever program you have, let's say a program to let someone log in into a Facebook page, it just follows instruction. So that's following through the logic. And if this happens, then do this. So that is the kind of thing. The concept can be traced back to ancient Babylonian in 1800 to 1600 BC, where the Babylonians developed algorithms to solve a class of problems by a single algorithm in a typical contemporary AI. So this concept of tracing AI back to the Babylonians helped us to actually not be afraid, because having something that solves a class of problems is something that humans have been doing. They say a good example of this is that, let's say the Pythagoras theorem is an equation that can solve any triangle that fits, any right-angled triangle. Therefore, such kind of thing can solve a class of whatever length a triangle. Therefore, it is the same with algorithms in computers. In a typical contemporary AI system, the relevant algorithms are embedded in a computer software that sort, filters, select various pieces of data that are presented to it, such as system uses data to learn, that is machine learning, recognizing, identifying, and interpret digital patterns such as images, sound, speech, text, or data. In early work in AI, humans explicitly devised an algorithm to solve a particular problem. In more recent AI, they do not. Instead, they devise a general learning algorithm which then learns a solution to the problem. Normally, the human developers don't know an explicit algorithm for solving the problem and don't know how the AI systems arrives at its conclusion. Therefore, here we see with all this machine learning, deep learning, and the development of algorithms that create algorithms to solve problems. Therefore, we have reached a stage where computers can find out by themselves ways to solve certain problems, right? That is the kind of thing, that is the evolution I've just tried to trace back. Therefore, I've given the whole history of AI. I've tried to hint the development of algorithms from the ancient Babylonians to Pythagoras. And then right now we have algorithms that can create algorithms to solve problems. So the journey towards AI can be traced far back when humans attempted to develop algorithms to solve a class of problems, and so forth. I've already said that. Therefore, we are going to what I would call the focal point of the whole work, and this is the philosophical implications of AI on consciousness, or the hard problem of consciousness, as we have discussed it today. Agency, this agency is the agent of the actions, and moral responsibility and potential impact to the study. So, the phenomenon of AI has caught the attention of philosophers, not only because this is more of a philosophical work, not only because they want to answer the new philosophical problems that have arisen, but also AI has challenged some of the previously well-established philosophical theories, such as on freedom, agency, consciousness, and moral responsibility. Therefore, we know in the history of philosophy, things like freedom, agency, all the way back to Plato and Aristotle, medieval period, people have tried to set firm ideas on these things. But with the emergence of AI, mimicking human behavior, human intelligence, these theories have been challenged, and hence philosophers have been pushed to discuss further. Therefore, let me start with consciousness and AI. The word consciousness, this is really the most fun part I would consider myself, and actually I would consider it as a new frontier myself I'm pursuing, very interesting. So the word consciousness is derived from the Latin word con, which means with, and scire, which means to know. Therefore, consciousness has etymological ties to one's ability to know and perceive. Through consciousness, one can have knowledge of external world and one's own mental state. In the history of philosophy, various philosophers attempted to expand the concept of consciousness, such as Descartes' "I think, therefore I am," and Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason. Here, Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason can be interpreted in various ways, but I firmly believe he was trying to look into the human consciousness, and this is really helpful because later on we discuss more responsibility, etc., not in the Kantian way, but as we know, Kant from the critique of pure reason went on to the critique of practical reason, trying to build a morality. It really helps us how the understanding of consciousness can lead us to further discussions of things like moral responsibility, agency and behavior, etc. But more relevant to the discussion of AI is the explanation of the American philosopher Thomas Nagel's famous "What is it like?" sense. Therefore, Thomas Nagel really is an American philosopher, and just to give a further hint, Thomas Nagel wrote a famous paper to explain this what is it like sense. To explain further, he wrote a paper called "What is it like to be a bat?" In this paper, he tries to explain, of course, this hard problem of consciousness. He tries to use this example of a bat. He says, a bat uses a sonar system to navigate its whole life. It navigates, it creates a world. It is conscious of its surrounding only using the sonar system. Although humans can make scientific study, can make measurements about the bat, but they will never know what is it like to be a bat, to live in a world where you do not use vision, you do not use light to navigate. You just use the sonar system, you create a world, you live, you reproduce, and everything. Very interesting article, actually, you can find it online. He explains that when one is in a conscious mental state, there's something it is like for one to be in that state, from the subjective or first person point of view. This subjective first person point of view, I, and of course other philosophers argue, is something that computers can never achieve. From this, what it is like to be of Thomas Nagel, because a computer can use a word, can make a prompt, but it doesn't have that first person experience, the I, like saying, I am Francis. You cannot have that. There's also something it is like to be a conscious creature, here he proceeds, whereas it is nothing like to be, for example, a table or a tree. Here he makes a distinction. There might be something like, he makes a distinction between conscious creatures and non-conscious creatures. If we have consciousness, then there is something it is like to be conscious. Therefore, something like a stone cannot have this experience. And of course, later on, machines and other things. The term self-consciousness plausibly involves some kind of awareness or consciousness of one's own mental states. So when I was writing this paper, I hadn't, because this is a 2 years anniversary of the paper, there were some beautiful arguments from people like Ian McGilchrist. If you guys allow me later on, I can put some insights. For the sake of time, let me focus on this. There's some interesting, especially knowledge, matter, and such kind of things. So, proceeding with consciousness, there are two broad traditional and competing metaphysical views concerning the mind and consciousness and conscious mental state. This is dualism and materialism. Dualism holds that the conscious mind or conscious mental state is non-physical. On the other hand, materialism holds that the mind is the brain, or more accurately, that conscious mental activity is identical with neural activity. Dualists would argue that there is more than just the biological makeup of the brain to consciousness. There is something substantial that characterizes somebody as being conscious. On the other hand, materialists would say consciousness is a product of physical or neural activity of the biological neurons. So this debate on consciousness is really hot. People are still, of course, researching. That's why they call it the hard problem of consciousness, because we are trying to study ourselves, but also it seems like there is no match of this kind of people like Roger Penrose will even go further to use Gödel's theorem. If you allow me later on, after the complete presentation, I can give you more insights on these new things which were not in this paper. So, could a machine under the influence of AI really think or be conscious with a subjective first-person experience? That's the key question with regard to artificial intelligence. Could a robot with AI really subjectively, underline that, experience the smelling of a rose or feel of pain and have a world view, like the example of the bat? There are some crucial philosophical questions regarding to consciousness, especially the emergence of AI. These are some crucial philosophical questions regarding to consciousness, especially the emergence of AI. Among the earliest arguments regarding machine consciousness was, of course, by, again, Turing's proposal mentioned above, but this has been criticized by philosophers. For example, the philosopher Rocco Gennaro argues that Such a purely behavioral and linguistic evidence does not mean something is having phenomenal first-person experience. So experience matters here in the first person, as you know, the I matters here, right? Means someone is experiencing, someone is responding conscious. Merely using a word like red doesn't ensure there is corresponding sensation of red or real grasp of what red means. Thus, Gennaro aligns with Nagel to show that the first person experience in consciousness is more than just the principles that explain how the process of perceiving something works. Therefore, as I explained earlier, the Turing test, Turing said, if you put an interlocutor and then in this side there is a machine, this side there is a human. If the interlocutor fails to distinguish between the machine and the human in the responses, then it means the machine is intelligence and it means it has consciousness. But people like Rocco say, no, using a word like red doesn't mean you have experienced the red color. As we will later on see, these large language models, etc., use massive data. They collect data, they respond. And this is very much seen well in the following argument. So among the most plausible criticism to machine consciousness is the Chinese room argument. I think this is amongst the most famous arguments on consciousness with machines, which almost everyone of you knows. Raised by the philosopher John Searle, a brilliant guy. In this, Searle denies that machines cannot have consciousness because they just follow a certain algorithm to give a respective response. Remember, we've already defined algorithm above. Searle supports his argument by a thought experiment in which he imagines himself being inside a room and follows English instructions of manipulating Chinese symbols in order to produce appropriate answers to questions given to him in Chinese from someone outside the room. Despite for it to appear to someone outside the room that he knows or understands Chinese, but he actually does not understand or know Chinese, for he merely manipulates symbols on the basis of syntax alone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually what is happening in machines. So they have this massive data, and then there's this algorithm whose tasks, when you put a prompt, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever AI chatbot you're using, it uses the available data according to the algorithm to give you the appropriate response. Therefore, this algorithm is not aware even of what the data means. It's just an algorithm to give you the response. This is the same in the Chinese room argument, whereby someone doesn't understand Chinese. He receives a Chinese symbol from outside the room, maybe through a small window or something, and then he looks maybe in some sort of dictionary, oh, this symbol means this, you have to respond this, and then he takes the appropriate response he gives out. From someone outside the room, he say, oh, there is somebody understanding Chinese inside, but actually he doesn't understand Chinese. I think that's pretty clear. So this argument by Searle is used to explain that a computer with AI only follows the algorithm. I've already explained that. Thus, a philosophical examination of consciousness and AI reveals that AI cannot have consciousness, especially from the first person point of view. After saying consciousness cannot be found in machines, metal stuff as we have, more beautiful things will come later with new insights. But let's go to the concept of agency. So, agency and AI. What is agency? Close to the concept of consciousness is the concept of agency in AI. For these two are entangled with the discussion of action. So action, agency, we're talking about the agency of the action. If someone performs an action, then that person is the agent of the action. The action comes from him or her. So, actions, and later, because of actions, moral responsibility of actions is considered. AI, in one way or another, executes actions as it is employed in driverless cars, drones, and other systems which attract discussions in moral responsibility in certain moral scenarios. This section expands the concept of agency. So, just to give a little more interesting insight here, as I was preparing this presentation, something which was not in the paper, actually over the time since the writing of the Bible, I learned that something very dangerous. I should have known it before writing the paper. Several chatbots have been involved in encouraging, advising young people, children, and a 123-year-old from what I've seen to commit suicide. Therefore, parents of these people have gone to sue the companies which run these applications of AI, the courts, because they actually led their children to commit suicide. And some terrible examples, the AI was even encouraging the person. So this was really puzzling to me. I wish I had known it earlier. So therefore, if we have this concept of moral agency, we still, who can be made accountable for these actions? Was it right for the parents to go and sue the companies that made the AI? I think these are the questions which you face every day, right? The metaphysics of, so in order to understand action and agents, let me make the metaphysics of action and agency, and here we really see this Aquinas and Aristotle. So in the metaphysics of action and agency, the aim is to see the quiddity, that is what it is, nature and end of action and agency. In human person, actions normally involve the intellect and the will, and they work hand in hand. Aristotle explains that in an action, the agent is the one that moves and the patient is the one that is moved. Both of them possess in common the will, for it is by the will that the agent acts, and it is by the will that it is made possible for the patient to be acted upon. But the agent is moved by the good or the goal, which it understands by means of the intellect. So understanding, consciousness here comes again in the concept of agency, right? Thus, in an agent, both the intellect and the will must be involved. Aquinas, brilliant guy again, for many ages, expands this notion and explains that the intellect understands that the will wills, and the will wills the intellect to understand. So there's an interplay here. Thus, in the metaphysics of action and agency of the human person, it is the power of the intellect and the will together that define an agent of an action, which is the one that acts. Furthermore, actions by agents are referred by scholastics can be termed as acts of humans. This is from the moral point of view, which are the ones that are mere happenings without intentions or involuntary, and human acts, which are acts that were intended voluntary. So Carol Ward-Tyler, or later on Pope John Paul II, as quoted by Onyekaziri in a very good work, asserts that only man's deliberate actions can be termed as actions, and nothing that isn't deliberate deserves to be termed so, and hence the ones with moral responsibility. Therefore, human acts are only for humans. That is, in a nutshell, human acts are only for humans. Therefore, we cannot sue the algorithm of the ChatGPT. We have to follow the agents, the makers. We'll see further later as we go down. Following the above exposition on action and agents, can be said that every action is produced by an agent. So Onyekaziri shows that in contemporary debate on action and agency, agents might be deterministic, and compatibilistic. So it is important to see where does the makers of AI fall in, and how can the agents of AI be accounted for. And this division is based on the notion of freedom of action and responsibility. In the indeterministic, the agent acts freely, indeterministic, and hence responsible for their actions. The deterministic notion of agency denies free will in human actions and maintains that the action is caused by certain nominal causes, as in the laws of natural sciences. So I don't really align with this because, we wouldn't have courts, there will be no place for justice. The compatibilistic notion aims at reconciling the two, that maintains that the determinism is compatible with free will in human agency. To have free will is a person's ability to do or act otherwise, irrespective of consequences. Thus, for an agent to be held morally accountable for the action, the agent must act freely, as shown from the indeterministic and compatibilistic notions of agency. Agency in artificial. So, friends, There, of course, it has been a quite hardcore philosophy there, I understand, but it was necessary to understand the metaphysical nature of actions in order to make everything clear. So agents in artificial intelligence, computers, especially AI, are designed to do things and take action. The questions arises whether the computers themselves or the AI systems can be said to be agents of the actions and hence held responsible for the actions. As I said, one of the very example, not abstract, is chatbots that led children and even an adult to commit suicide, right? They helped, they gave information, they helped planning terrible news. If not, then who should be held responsible? As explained above, in machine learning and AI systems through an algorithm learns from the available data and current circumstances and can develop a solution or action to a problem that is not known or even predictable to the one programmed it. So developers of AI could escape by that argument. It follows then that the AI systems appear as more or less acting free agents because they create solutions that the makers don't know. But looking more carefully on the nature of the actions, even produced by the algorithm of deep or machine learning, it can be observed that the machine learning system acts because this is very important. It can be observed that the machine learning system acts because of a reason and not for a reason. Very important. It acts because of a reason and not for a reason. That is, it has been programmed to act so in certain situations and not that it decides to act or understand why it is acting. This violates the requirements of an autonomous or free agent who should act both because of a reason and for a reason, and acting otherwise and hence become the governor not only of its actions but more so of itself. Hence, despite AI to appear to have an autonomy of action, cannot be. So I think here it's pretty clear that they have been programmed to act that way. They would have been programmed to act otherwise. We don't know where the solution came from, but you programmed them to act in ways that they devise their own solution. Therefore, the programmer, the AI company, maker of the AI, still can be held responsible. The moral responsibility and AI. This is the last concept in this part of what I would call the hardcore philosophy. It is obvious from the above exposition, pretty clear, on consciousness and agents that AI cannot be held morally responsible for the action it performs. From the metaphysics of consciousness, it has been shown that AI is not conscious of the actions it performs. Furthermore, from the exposition of agency in AI, it has been shown that the agency in AI is not free agency, which is the agency that is required for holding one responsible for the actions. Free will and consciousness are called to account moral responsibility, in which case AI has been shown to not possess any of them. No free will, no consciousness. Thus, who is really morally responsible for AI actions? So, following John Lennox, I think this is the most sane philosopher concerning matters with AI and, of course, some sort of philosophy of science. I like him very much. So, John Lennox, Professor Emeritus of Mathematics and Philosophy at Oxford University, asserts that for AI, computer systems have no conscience, and so the morality of any decision they make will reflect the morality of the computer programmers. And that is where the difficult starts. How can we be sure that the programmers will build a morality that is benevolent and humane? And here he goes further to show how bad is it or even impossible to program a morality into a machine. He says, following Lennox's example, I say statement which is in line with the metaphysical discussion on consciousness and agency above, it is obvious that the human programmers should be morally responsible for the actions performed by AI. Thus, the programmers should ensure they develop systems that take into account the moral norms of society that are human. Lennox asks further questions. to show the difficulty in morality in AI. In moral dilemmas, he asks, on what moral principles should a system be programmed in such dilemmas? For example, as when a self-driving car to avoid a child crossing the road if the consequence is that it unavoidably hits a bus queue of many adults. So I think in philosophy, ethics, this was some sort of abstract thought experiment before, that maybe a train is crossing. On this side is your, say, mother, and then on the other side, there are, say, 10 people whom you don't know. The train was going on the side of your mother. If you flip the switch, and then it will go on the side of... Now, this is not a thought experiment, and driverless cars are something that exists, something I experimented. Tesla, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has some sort of co-pilot kind of thing, and it has already caused some problems already. So this is not abstract anymore. This is the age of AI. So is there any possibility of getting any kind of consensus here? These are among problems that shows a complexity of programming a morality into a computer and leaving it to make the decision. So this is the hardcore part is over. Now I have 3 brief points which I'll make very quickly about the societal impacts of AI. So AI has brought more than deep philosophical questions. It has great impact on society. Some of them are discussed below. The first one is the advancement and revolution of work, which I've already spoken about a little bit earlier. AI has shown to be faster, smarter, and even more precise in some intellectual works. Thus, it will transform and revolutionize the way people work by reducing the number of errors compared to humans, and even go to dangerous places humans could not go. Example of some of the areas in which AI has shown great potential in work include medicine, in which AI makes better diagnosis, design drugs that would have taken humans a long time to develop. Autonomous vehicles, which follow driving regulations and help to reduce accidents. In industry, in which AI is used in designing of products in faster and even safer ways, in which it can be used to solve such problems. This and many others. So there are many others. Climate change, I think, or if you can mention in education, translation, such kind of things. But we have another impact, which is a problem, a negative one, which is a violation of human rights. One of the greatest applications of AI is in surveillance. With high power AI can now make facial recognition and track people based on their faces and other data. People with iPhones know this far better than humans could ever do. This application has arisen some controversial arguments concerning privacy and social control. First, surveillance at high levels needs data that is to be scanned and to train the AI systems. Remember, when these people created AI, they found there's massive data. They didn't start to collect data when they created. They had to have data that was present, our data. Further, our authorities can use this data to make social control of people. One example, something that really happens of these applications, which have already started to show great impact, is the application of AI by the Chinese government, in which through facial recognitions, people are scanned and given credits. The more they abide to community norms, the more credits they get, and even getting better social services there. So therefore, there are countries where CCTV cameras are everywhere. In Britain, for instance, people are protesting with Big Brother is watching. The government is using to avoid criminals, etc. Lennox again avers that this kind of surveillance using artificial intelligence can lead to surveillance capitalism and surveillance communism. The former is when companies use people's data and hence take people only as commodity for business. This will reduce the dignity of human to a mere commodity. The latter is like in the case of China shown above, in which people, this is surveillance communism now, are forced, because China is a common country, right? The latter also abide to community norms. So people are not in China. People are not abiding to the community rules safely, because if they get poor credits from the surveillance system, even social service, maybe tax whatever, to be poor. Thus, for humane reasons, AI developers and authorities should work together to make sure AI does not become a tool that's so. If you look deeply to this problem, it's really deep, because first of all, this surveillance capitalism, our data was used to create these systems, and companies are still selling data. There are ways in which they're forcing us to sell this data. But surveillance communism, it's just like the idea of communism that was with USSR, because USSR used to go door to door. Lennox shows in his book, used to go door to door. But right now they have a tool where they can scan everyone walking on the street, not only walking in the street, even when you're sleeping, your phone, whatever. You have a device that you willingly give that data. The last impact, as for the paper, there are many impacts I would have said, but of course we have said time, is forgetting to work and potential fall of society. I think during the weekdays we were arguing, one of the person was arguing, I don't know, AI being brighter future, whatever, but here in this work, together with people like Lennox, I argue it can bring forgetting to work and potential fall of society. And I would add, even that problem of encouraging people to commit suicide falls here. So, work has been one of the fundamental pillars of any society. Sometimes man is defined as an animal that can work, or a being that can work. And the sustenance of humanity. John Lennox explains how work or labor, when performed, it becomes part of the property produced. Not John Lennox, but John Locke explained how work, when performed, it becomes part of the property produced, and hence he showed how work is important for flourishing of a rational being. The emergence of AI that performs various works which require human intelligence and even to do them far better than humans has alarmed the society. On the impact, it has more than just improving the way people work. Lennox avers that using AI can lead people to forget to work and even to the fall of society. He recalls that in various periods of human history, slavery made one class. So during the slave time, slavery made one class to work for another, so-called higher class. And this led to the system to bring a class of people who forgot to work and hence rebuild the society. He foresees that in the age of AI, this is even more dangerous, for AI does not only bring unemployment. This is a very important part. AI does not only bring unemployment, but rather it makes people unemployable, right? So, for instance, according to the statistics, as he was writing this book, there is a huge number of children in the world, around the world, about 617 million of them, fall below the acceptable standard of reading and mathematics. Why is this very dangerous? In the age of AI, these people will not only be unemployed, but will be unemployable. For they cannot compete in such a world where many intellectual activities are done by AI in a far better way. Thus, in case of failure of AI, people might not know how to rebuild the society, but as well, the large number of people without work is going to cause economic disruption and difficult for people to get their daily needs. Philosophers, authorities, and other experts should check on how the society can get the best out of AI in a way that will not demolish society. Therefore, gentlemen and ladies, this is the end. I would like to conclude by saying this work has made an examination of philosophical implications of AI, in which it has been shown that AI cannot be really conscious from the subjective first-person experience point of view, like the way humans are, and despite being capable of simulating human intelligence and perform some actions, it does not possess its own autonomy, and hence AI cannot be a free agent. This implies that for the actions performed by AI, the makers of AI should be morally responsible and hence should make assessment of moral impacts of the systems. The phenomenon of AI has great potentials through which humanity can advance, but when not checked, it can devalue humanity and even culminating to the fall of society, such as when AI falls in the wrong hands. Thus, philosophers, authorities, and AI experts should discuss and implement the best way AI can serve society best. So thank you very much, friends, for listening. This is my presentation. As I said, there will be many more advancements I have here I would like to contribute, but I think I've spoken for quite a long time. It would be good if we allow some interactions.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, brother. It has been rich enough, and thank you for sharing your 2-year anniversary topic on AI.
Thank you.
Without wasting time, may I welcome anyone with a question or a contribution? May I start by posing my question to the presenter? So, Brother Francis Shirima, just as you said, consciousness, it is to know with, basically, it's know with, con, with, and scientia, or which comes from the Latin shire, to know, it is to know with. Okay, now what is that with when we talk about consciousness? Of course, I've tried to check out this, and we see it's not basically an object, but in a relation, to know in relation. So it seems then consciousness should be meaning something like to know with, to know in relation with that which came before us. We know we are created beings, so there is God, at least according to John Don Scotus, who says Christ the first idea in the mind of God. Then there's Christ behind us. There's the being that came before us, or that is before us, and that knows before us. And so all knowing that comes after is knowing in relation to. So now my question now exactly comes here, that with AI, AI is not knowing from the first person experience. You said it well, and I agree. But it knows in relation to the first person I that made it, that programmed this. So it knows in relation. So then that means AI is conscious because it knows in relation to the programmer. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I think you've based your argument on to know, on knowing. I would first like to start by reminding that AI is an algorithm. AI are algorithms, large language models. And what do these algorithms do? The algorithms that are designed to take to take inputs from users and then give appropriate responses from data that is available. Therefore, in your question, does it know the data? In my response, I would say the algorithm does not know data because it is not conscious in that sense. I think I've given here an example, maybe in Gen Linux. If I didn't mention, maybe I should mention it now, but as well with another one from Roger Penrose. Roger Penrose would start by saying that, of course, we're using terms, but artificial intelligence is not intelligent because intelligence must have a consciousness. There is no intelligence without a consciousness. And if we go back to this Lennox, where I said when you're talking about to know something as a character, knowing with the knower, I don't think there is knowing with a knower. This will be something like, I would say, using a tool, right? So if I'm using a machine, let's say a mower, to cut grass, it cuts the grass, but does it know that it's cutting the grass? I am the one cutting the grass. The machine will not act on itself. And this is the case of AI. I can't imagine a knowing without freedom. I cannot imagine a programmed knowing. As conscious beings, we have a certain kind of freedom and autonomy being aware of. Therefore, I cannot imagine a knowing without freedom because it has been limited in what it should do. Therefore, by removing the first person subjective experience is removing the self from this algorithm, which I think, as I was saying, one of the two quotations I made in the beginning, the misuse of words like intelligence, learning, and knowing, like say deep learning. The deep learning in artificial intelligence is not the learning as humans do. When humans learn, the knowledge changes a person. The knowledge changes a being. With deep learning, a machine does not become a better. It becomes a better responding machine, but I don't believe metaphysically it becomes a different being. It just stores data. It doesn't know. It can store more data, but the algorithm doesn't expand. It is the same algorithm, if you know what an algorithm means. So what we call a deep learning is the same algorithm, which will have more and more data. The more data it has, the better it will perform, but the algorithm doesn't become something better, which is different for humans. Once we learn, become different being, and we are not stuck in the same place. And lastly, the what it is like to be concept of John Sierra is very, of Thomas Nagels is very important because he says we can learn all is it about to be a bat. I mean, what a bat does, but we can never know what is it like to live without the experience we have, or just to have the sonar experience.
Thank you. I think we can keep reflecting on this because actually I would think about that. We don't really change. I don't change by knowing many things. I don't become. If I know, like you said, a bat, I don't become a bat. Even if I know a lot of things about the bat, but also the AI knows so many things, and the very characteristic of an AI is that it learns. AI must learn. It learns from the data, and it must be creative. AI is creative. So that shows that it develops in the learning. But anyway, we can we can come back to this later. We can come back to this later.
Before it's forgotten, I would like to say it is important, just as I quoted the very beginning, the misunderstanding of words there. We are making equivocation of words. When a machine learns, it doesn't learn, it stores more data. It is the same algorithm with more data. It stores more data. It stores in the same way and performs the same action. It cannot do something it was not programmed to do.
But brother, you can check out the characteristics of an AI. You can check out later. That's why I said we can come back to this later on what are the essentials of an AI, because I am quite sure AI has to be created, has to invent, has to come with an invention. That's why you give it this and say design. Come with what do you think? It has to be creative. That's one of the characteristics of an AI. But I think please let's come back to this later. May I welcome Aman Limo to hear from him. Brother, welcome so that you can hear something from you. Brother Aman Limo. Aman Limo seems not ready. So when he's ready, we can get back to him. So you're welcome, Brother Francis. Wait for Aman Limo.
So I think as you are speaking about when you have spoken very well and your own words. Oh, we have Cassiano Sokoni. Can you allow him?
Yeah, please. Welcome, Cassiano.
Hello.
Welcome, Cassiano.
Cassiano Sokoni, turn your microphone on.
Yeah, as well as Aman Limo, just in case.
Yes, Amani Limo, turn your microphone on.
Okay. Hello, brothers.
Hello. Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, this is Aman Limo. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to appreciate Brother Francis for your good presentation, which you have made. Actually, I like, or I can say I love AI, artificial intelligence. And this was my topic also when I was completing my philosophy. I wrote about the moral impact of artificial intelligence. So at least I know some things concerning AI. Historically, as you mentioned, you tried to give us the historical background of it. But then again, for the good title, the title itself is very interesting. You have captured the most and the most important things: consciousness, the urgency, as well as the moral responsibility, and then again the impacts. But now, for me, what I would like to ask, or I would like to contribute here, is that Brother Francis, if you can try to give us, in brief, first of all, what is your aim to give us this presentation? And I need you to give your answers in looking at the context of Africa. What is your aim to give us this title, to present this title to us? What do you want us to capture as Africans? Don't put it universal, but particularly Africans who are not much more understanding about AI. Then the second thing is about the danger of AI. You have given us the impact of AI, positive and negative. Somehow, the way people talk of at the negative impact of AI, they take it as something very dangerous. But again, from your presentation, I heard you give positive also impacts. For me, concerning the dangers of AI and what I've tried to discover from my research, that I did is that, according to one philosopher can say, is called Stephen Hoffman. He wrote a book known as 5 Forces That Can Change Everything. In his book, he says, the great danger of AI, of artificial intelligence, is not the ability to perform works or to replace human labor or whatever, but the only danger that can terrify the world is the ability of these machines to communicate themselves. What is your comment concerning this danger of AI with regard to the impact you have given? The last one is about your stand. What is your stand concerning this AI? Do you think it's something helpful to the society in general? Though I know some research, some studies are still going on concerning the issue of moral impact, the issues of urgency, and the responsibility of how AI could be addressed to the potential consequences of which it will bring about to the world. But then, according to you, for the research you have done, what is your study concerning AI? Is it something that is good or what? Because why I'm asking this is that, take it as the mode of production. Sometimes, if you take the mode of production, feudalism, I don't know, the rest up to the capitalism, every mode comes with the positive and negative. Can you also think of AI as something that has come out of course, is now at our time, but at the same time, we cannot take it in a negative impact per se, that is going to replace human labor. There will be no difficulty in the big questions people ask themselves is that what will be the job market of the future. But again, if we have AI, meaning we can really put our minds, our struggles to interact with it, and we can create also more jobs from it, rather than claiming or taking it as something very bad or dangerous. So the question is, first of all, your aim, the danger, and then what is your stand over it? Thank you.
Sorry, you had almost 3 questions. One was the aim, and the second
danger,
one, the danger.
The danger, yes, the danger, and then the last one is what is his stand?
Yeah, personal stand. Yeah, welcome, Brother Francis.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Limo, Amani. Starting with the danger of AI. Really, previously, I can say as I was writing this article 2 years ago, the dangers of AI, in my opinion, were strictly based on the human actions. Humans have to act fast, and really, AI didn't. Sometimes, as Ian McGilchrist would say, if I remember well, is that for him, the thing he afraid is that people will start to act like AI, because AI is not like an alien being that came to the world. AI was created by humans. Therefore, the very act of AI existing is because the humans acted first. And as I understand the nature of algorithms, someone has to push the button in order at least for the AI to start, even if they can be automated to do various tasks, for instance, like automated weapons, but still, it doesn't have it's not something that emerges, it might be like something rains and then the plants all come up. No. A human being has to be there first to begin. Therefore, this is the real date. So I would say with AI, the worst danger you have is when AI is on the wrong hands and in various ways. For instance, the simplest way would think like being on the hands of terrorists, because it can do the worst it can help them to do the worst kind of terrorism. The other kind is like I have mentioned, or with John Lennox, that is surveillance capitalism and surveillance communism. So the big governments have this AI and they use it to manipulate people the way they want. Data, so this is a terrible thing because the privacy of people is those are dangers, really. And when you say to this, what you mentioned from a scholar, whoever, that communicating themselves, I don't know, because I still today, I make lots of follow-up of AI. I've subscribed to Nature AI, the magazine, Nature AI every week. So I heard about AI communicating themselves, but the big question is, how do they communicate themselves? Does AI say, oh, let me find another AI and communicate? Or humans make, in this what I heard is like people made AIs communicate. You give a response, but also not taking it for granted, because as I said, right now we have narrow AI systems developed separately. There can be systems that cooperate. For instance, there can be an AI that listens, let's say, to the customer, but there is an AI that looks on the database with the money, and there's an AI. So in their communicating, they can make errors because these AIs make massive errors sometimes. They're not perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Will you please go straight to other two responses? That's okay.
When they communicate themselves, of course, because they make errors, they might make tremendous errors, especially when they're given important decisions. And my stand is that AI is very helpful, and from what I said before, if the humans having it are good people, then AI will be good. It has already been extremely helpful to us. Tremendous works it does.
African perspective?
Yes, I'm going down there, Brother Dantus.
Okay.
So, such kind of thing. So, good people, good AI. Bad people, bad AI. But because it is a machine, and machines are not perfect, there are still some dangers you don't know about AI. Example is the one that encouraged children and one adult, as I know, to commit suicide. So, in the African perspective, I would like to say, well, Africa, actually, we shouldn't overlook ourselves very much, because some people are saying, oh, Africa is the continent, whatever. But actually, I have some friends, I have people, we use it every day. College students in Africa are using it extensively. Lecturers in universities are using them extensively. So in Africa, it can be helpful if we embrace it, really, but we should foresee the dangers of it. For instance, it's not safe for kids. This kind of technology has to be taken with care. But also, if we are not careful, we are going to be enslaved again, and also we might be set back, because, as I said, it depends on massive data, and it seems, or it is, that we do not have much of data input into the digital world already, especially from Africa. Therefore, much of the data of this will be coming from the Western world, from China, from Asia, and other places. And a good example really is in USA. Of course, it is USA, but there's something reflected with racism, because they said they put CCTVs to scan criminals, and because they used it statistically, and because they had most records of criminals as black people. So when a black people pass, even if it's good, the computer will predict us maybe he will be a criminal. So that kind of thing. So because of the negative worldview the world has implanted on Africa somehow, it might be a disadvantage to us. But if we work, we embrace, we work hard to make it, just like other people, Russia, investing billions of money competing this, we will be in a better position. So concerning jobs, I think there's a question you asked about, can you remember about whether we can stop it or whatever?
It was talking about the danger of the job market, but I think...
yeah. So actually, there are two ways I can say on this. It is true that, just as my last point, that AI can... Because if we have AI, we'll have to have people who are really well educated. The jobs which will be available will be for people who are very intelligent and well educated.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, can we hold on that, brother? Because there are so many questions today. This topic is very interesting topic, and we had people trying to raise hands. We had Cassiano Sokoni. I don't know if you are ready. You can switch on your mic so you can speak something, Cassiano. But also Patrick. But maybe one has typed a question here. I don't know. No, it's not a very question. But anyway, so these brothers, please, anyone with a question, please raise your hand and you can switch on your mic to speak. Cassiano or even Patrick, you can begin. Okay, Patrick, welcome.
Ndio unasikika?
Unasikika.
Mimi swali langu ni lina base much kwa kwetu sisi wanafunzi. Kimeongelewa artificial intelligence. Now we are in artificial life, tunakubali ndio. Kuhusiana na wanasaikolojia, maana kwenye hii artificial intelligence mara nyingi inaenda kwa wanasaikolojia kuhusu ile tukiongelea kuhusu functionalism, how our mind adapts to the new environment. Sasa mimi nikiacha kuyatafakari hayo, nikijitafakari mimi kama mwanafunzi wa sasa hivi, unaona, mimi swali langu kwa France au kwa mtu yoyote ambaye pengine anaweza kwa anisaidia jibu bila zamani. So how will I study my philosophy in this age of artificial intelligence? Should I do philosophy with AI? Yaani sasa tunajiuliza, kwa sababu tunajiuliza kwa mlengo upi? Tukiangalia simply kwa mwanafalsafa nadhani tunamfahamu Socrates, anasema kwamba knowledge ya kweli unaijua pale unapojitambua kwamba haujui kitu, yaani kwamba hakufundisha watu kwa kuwapa majibu, alifundisha watu kwamba yani wajitambue kwamba hawajui, afu baadaye waingie kwenye undani wao, wafikirie ili waongeze kipawa chao cha kufikiria. Sasa nikija kwenye mfano cha GPT, nikichukua simu yangu sasa hivi hapa nikitype chochote kile inaniambia. Sasa mimi ndio nataka nipate ushauri mzuri kutoka kwa bwana mkubwa Francis kwa upande wangu mwanafunzi. Kwa hiyo tumesikia mambo mengi, sasa mimi unipe tu kidogo kwamba how should I go with this AI in my academic life. Ndio ilikuwa swali langu tu kwa kifupi.
Karibu kaka France, moja kwa moja.
Okay, asante kaka Patrick Mswazi. Kwanza umenikumbusha kitu kizuri sana ambacho of course for the sake of time I couldn't say anything. Ulichoongelea ni kitu kizuri sana. Kwanza ni kujibu straight, alafu baadaye nije nitoe mfano mzuri wa research iliyofanyika kuhusiana na ninachosema.
Lakini najaribu kuwa short, najua.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm trying.
Okay.
Kwa kujibu, the system of learning actually in my case ndio inaweza kuleta shida kutokana na AI. Kwa sababu wewe umeelezea jambo zuri sana, namna ya kujifunza, kutaka kujifunza na kwa malengo mbalimbali, lakini siku hizi tuna watu wanaojifunza ambao driving force yao is to get the exam well. For those kind of people, using ChatGPT to know something in order to just go that way, very fine. But I think if you want to be the kind of learners that Socrates was intending, people who can ask themselves questions is very much good. And so should use AI if you want to be the Socrates kind of person. I think there should be certain kinds of AI to help people doing such kind of thing. And there are tools actually which will help you to learn that way. I can't mention them here for the sake of time, but if you just want to get the answer and put it on a paper and go on, that will kill you. But if you want to learn it in a good way, it will be nice. And the example to give very briefly, there were some psychologists, I was listening to this startup podcast. They say if you go and Google, I think, ChatGPT on your brain, they took 3 groups of students. And they asked them to write an essay about something. The first group were people who didn't use any tool, they just wrote. The second group were told to use ChatGPT, and the third group was told to use Google, just collect titles online. And then they found teachers, old teachers used to the old system, and then they gave them these papers and they told them to mark. And they said almost all the teachers, when they reached the papers of students who wrote using ChatGPT, they said, wow, these students are soulless. These writings, they were sad. Why are these students so dry? So it shows that the response that come with AI are not very human. So they cannot, if you just using that straight way, they cannot help very much the students to earn the knowledge to become human, because their logical systems, they just give a straight logical system. But as again I said, there are tools which have been designed to help someone learn well. I think something like Duolingo is a system that uses AI, helps people to learn. It gives you the harder questions, trying to help you learn language. Duolingo is a good example of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I come back to Aman Limo, Alan Keys has been typing a question here that the main negative thing, according to me, is limiting the mindset of our generation, so much so that we can no longer get great thinkers like those of Aristotle, Kant, etc. To me, this is so dangerous to us and the future. However much AI is a human project, I submit. So maybe I've been asking about please, to the core aim of this presentation. Can you help him going back to the core aim of this presentation regarding his reflection here on the danger of the future, the probable danger of the future in this arena?
So if I understand you well, he's in line with the aim of this presentation. He's thinking AI is going to put limitations on human thinking. Am I right?
But Alan Kiza, you can switch on your mic and explain something if possible.
Alan Kiza?
Yes, please.
Yeah, welcome, please.
Yes,
please explain.
Thank you for the presentation, brothers. Just 2 concerns. The main first one is the first colleague who asked, who came in, what the aim of this presentation? What is the purpose? What do you want us to take? What is the general point? Are we just together? We are aiming at, or something we are targeting, so much so that we can participate relevantly, not outside that topic or the
Okay. While you're waiting for the clarification of another question.
When I look at AI and I think of yes.
Okay, I was saying, as you wait for your clarification of another question or the second question, please, Francis, clarify what is your aim. What are you aiming at coming up with this title?
Okay, thank you very much.
Please be short so they can come back to Alan.
Okay. The philosophical implications of AI on consciousness, human consciousness, agency, human responsibility, and also I state some impacts on it. So what do I mean? AI has brought some challenges because it has become like a new phenomenon, and therefore it has challenged some of the well-established theories, especially on consciousness, agency, and moral responsibilities, which can be traced back to far back as the Greek time philosophy. Therefore, what I've tried to say is that AI cannot be conscious. Therefore, AI cannot be a free agent. By not being a free agent, it cannot be held morally responsible. Therefore, with all the things we can do with AI, the doers, the makers of AI, or the users should be held morally accountable for that. But also I've given some impacts of AI, whereby I mentioned some good impacts, such as the massive speed at which it can help us to do certain tasks that we didn't believe can do. But also there's some other negative impacts, which are like societal fallback. It can bring some control of people.
Yeah, so just to help Brother Alan, if I've understood Brother Francis, what Francis was aiming here is to show that AI in reality can't be conscious, can't be a real moral as that, and the sort of that kind of try to take any word from the title and negate it. I'm sorry, but I don't know if but we can come back to this again, Francis. You can talk about. So, Brother Alan Kiza, what do you want to stress again here from the presentation?
What I was expressing.
Brother Magilimo, also stay tuned as Alan Kiza is finishing.
Yeah, okay.
What I just wanted, like an input, looking at AI on the other side of the coin, as you have read to the members there. We tend to narrow our mind to what is already existing, so much so that we cannot come up with something that is so new to the extent that it can be referred to so much. Now that we have AI, whenever you think of something, whenever you are asked a question, the mind runs to AI, type very fast and get an answer. For me, this is very dangerous. That we can no longer become great thinkers in our generation. We shall miss out of this kind of arena, bringing the examples of Kant, Thomas Aquinas, those Aristotles, those great thinkers who came up with the theories, which theories now is a problem. And these theories which are being manifested, which are coming up in our generation, you will find out that they are also connected to some great thinkers. So for me, this is so dangerous. I don't know whether it can have a kind of liquid soap so that it can at least be narrowed, so that we can have great thinkers, something that comes from a mind. Someone challenges you out of his or her mind without involving this kind of artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Alan Kiza, and I think yours is a worry that the danger of AI, as we've been talking. Of course, that's the danger of AI is everywhere. Maybe we can come back again to this. Brother Manlimo, but sorry, presenters, this Manlimo will be the last as we get back to France into the conclusions because time is running short. So Manlimo, welcome as we head to the conclusions.
Thank you, brother. So I see some people now are in confusion, and I need to bring them to clarity once again.
Okay.
There is one brother asked about how can he learn with this AI and whatever. I am not trying to brand my book, but if you take my book and read chapter 11, I've talked about knowledge, how we can gain knowledge. And there is one man, a great journalist, American journalist, he wrote, he said there is no time ever before that knowledge has been available than this time, and it still is ignored. You see, the danger that we have, or the confusion that we have, is that it's not like our mind cannot grasp or get or capture things. The problem is that we don't set a time to study. We don't set time to search. You see, everything is already at our fingertips. But then the problem is that when we are asked the questions from the class or whatever, we just sleep, we just take time to scroll on social medias, watching things and whatever. And then when the deadline arrives, we just use AI and get the answers and we proceed with life. That is not knowledge. You can use AI to search, to gain knowledge and whatever. And then at the end of the time, we'll come up with a critical conclusion of what you can stand for. You go to the library or read books. It's just the same. So what I'm trying to say is that everything can be learned, can be taught to anybody, at any place, at any age. But now, depending on how the materials are arranged and how the person has presented himself to receive the information. So the human brain has been the same all over from the time immemorial. But the problem is that every moment we get time to study, to get time to learn, we don't use it. That's why Socrates said, we learn by knowing that we do not know. And when you do not know now, accept, take your time, study, research. No matter which search engine you are using, the thing is accept to learn. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, taking the caution that it could be your the last comment, so that we head the conclusion. Brother Francis, we have talked about so many things here, so many highlights on the dangers and advantages and what this thing really is. This thing, AI. Perhaps we forget a lot of things today. What do you think we should get out with and carry out with ourselves? Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it would be justice if I say a little bit on what Patrick has. Was it Patrick or someone else who asked? Alan, somebody?
Yeah, it was Patrick about how to study with AI.
Yeah. Actually, about, I don't know, the great thinking, whatever. I think, first of all, AI itself is a product of great thinking. And I think people who are great thinkers and things will just sort out themselves. But for the kind of thing you was asking, coming with people like Kant, Socrates, as mentioned, philosopher, I don't know, can even mention Einstein. I think the kind of thing he's referring to is maybe philosophical thinking, deep thinking. And I think they say simply, philosophy begins in wonder, right? Therefore, we begin in wonder. Once you wonder about something, you think about it, you make it better. And whether it's a scientist or whatever, and this is actually our behavior, right? So I really don't think AI is going to make us to stop wondering. We still wonder, and because that is a human thing, every human is a philosopher. I think it's just going to be that the way we used to wonder before is not going to be the way we wonder later on, right? Okay. So that this brings to the great thing. Just like in African philosophy, they ask, did Africans ever wonder? They say Africans didn't have to wonder the way Greeks did. They had their ways. So I think it's going to be a different direction. Now, come to what Brother Datius have said about the conclusion. I would simply say that I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence. I don't believe artificial intelligence by itself is going to bring a doomsday, because there has to be someone who presses the button, just like the way the nuclear bomb itself didn't go to Nagasaki, Hiroshima, such kind of thing, and the ones installed today are not acting. Someone has to act. Therefore, good humans, good AI. Bad humans, bad AI. Even for the cases of suicide, as I said, there has to be someone who acted first. If the morality of AI is bad, it means the programmers are bad. If you create an algorithm that can produce unpredictable results, then you know there might be dangerous, unpredictable results. Therefore, you have to program it like, don't bring this out. Even if they're unpredictable, you have to filter the unpredictable results. I think, of course, somehow some great AI companies from the cases of suicide are trying to do right now. And AI is a great topic. Therefore, I'm not afraid of AI. People should not be afraid of AI. We should take into account the dangers that come with it, so as we may make sure that it does not demolish our society, just like the way they did with the nuclear bombs. Since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I think people are making them, but they're not in use yet. I believe, I hope they won't be used. The same with AI. It's a great tool. I think people use it. For instance, you can translate it, massive document in a short time. It's a great thing. But we should take some accountability on its morality and the negative impacts so as we can do it. That's why this is my saying, I think. Good people, good AI. Bad people, bad AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good people, good AI. Bad people, bad AI. With that, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Thank you for your patience, especially you who have been with us to this dot. With that, may I say a prayer of conclusion that will mark our end. My God, my all, who are you?